uniforms, you know, have like a little beret
Tweed
and a
jackets.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, welcome back to Hip Dad Radio. You're here for the Hip Dad Radio Record Club. My name is Matt Kennett. To the right of me is Luke Sharkey, Doug Hall, Lauren Sheeman, James Burnham, Matt Gillespie, Mason Decker. We're here. We're reviewing some older albums today. We all picked an album that I guess is just older than a year old. I guess that's considered old for us. But we all picked an album that's old, and we all listened to it this month, and we are now coming together to talk about them. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned to the end of the video. We're going to all vote on which album we liked best. And don't forget, you can also vote. Check out the link in our description of our YouTube video. It'll take you to our website where you can vote on your favorite album, so you can kind of play along with us. Yeah, that's about it. I'm not starting this time. Someone else has to start. Who's gonna go?
Doug, let's talk about your Anita Baker album. That album was great.
Yeah. Doug goes first.
Oh, I didn't think I'd go first. Okay.
Doug, we want you to go first.
I took down some notes this time. Cool. Yeah, Anita Baker's Rapture, released in 1986, so it's a pretty old album. Actually to a lot of critical acclaim as well. It won 2 Grammys, the first for Best Female R&B vocal performance, and then the single on it, Sweet Love, also won Best R&B song as well for that year. That song was also sampled by MF Doom in Hoe Cakes, if you guys know that song, from Food. And this was like her sophomore album, really became her really big breakout album for her. Definitely like catapulted her career to a lot of new heights. And it kind of came out during an era of music in the contemporary smooth romantic jazz R&B world called The Quiet Storm, which was kind of started by Smokey Robinson on the album Quiet Storm, which is just sort of like it's like a vibe, you know, much like smooth jazz, but with lyrics. And a lot of other artists like Luther Vandross and Smokey Robinson as well made music during that time. And this one definitely like fit that vibe too. So it was a great album. I really enjoyed it. I kind of like grew up listening to this album. My dad would like play this album in the car, like when we would like drive places, I don't know. But this is like kind of a type of music that I grew up with. So I was really glad I was able to like revisit it and share it with y'all. So yeah. Would love to hear what you guys thought of this romantic romantic. It's not necessarily like sexy, you know, but it's definitely like it's a romantic album. It's really sweet. So
it's smooth. Yeah. I loved it. Well, it kind of sort of sounds similar to James's pick, but it's like 10 years, you know, in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, definitely like production wise,
it's really clean. And I don't know, I was jamming to it. The Same Old Love, 365 days. Damn, yes. That song is so good. I haven't like listened to that like for a while now.
Yeah, I didn't. Sorry, you go.
I didn't realize how popular it was. I didn't realize this was such a like big album on all these awards. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but I really liked a lot of the tracks on this album. Watch Your Step was really good. I really liked Doug, you're absolutely right saying it's romantic without being sexy. Talking a lot about love, different kinds of love. You know, yeah, I really like the content of this album. Full disclosure, I've been on kind of a love song kick recently, so this really hit home for me. I really enjoyed it.
I really liked this album too. For me, one of the standout tracks was No One in the World. I'm not sure why, but I just really liked that one. Smooth, The stuff about the Quiet Storm is really interesting and fits in perfectly with the vibe of the album. I had no idea about that history. Great album, great pick.
What does like Quiet Storm actually mean? Is it kind of like more like simplified arrangements with, you know, kind of slower tempos, or is it more, I don't really know what Quiet Storm really denotes.
So Wikipedia says a quiet storm is radio format and genre of contemporary R&B performed in smooth, romantic, jazz-influenced style.
Bingo.
Yeah, and it goes on to give more stuff.
I think what I also appreciated is like one, you know, mirroring what everyone else said, which is that I just thought it was a great album. But two is that, you know, the foundation of each song is rock solid. I don't know. You'd probably, since you listened to this growing up, you'd probably know the history of the music a little better than me, but there seems to be a lot of elements of soul in there as well. And the bass lines typically in soul are just rock solid. The drums are just, you know, absolutely foundational. And then, you know, it's just got that rock solid, I know I'm repeating myself, but just really just, yeah, it's smooth. Yeah, it's undeniably very, very smooth, but just solid foundational, you know, grooves that are just, that make you want to listen to them over and over again. So yeah, that really, really good album.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded like, I was like, this is kind of like Michael McDonald, like how smooth like that the production is, and like the way she sings is like pretty similar too. But just like totally soulful, like just I don't know who put that album together, but or how they did it, but it's crazy.
Also, like Anita Baker also made like some gospel music as well. She's never really, I wouldn't really even say she was a gospel singer, but she just like made like her voice really fit really well. So I think that's also where like instrumentally somewhere where things are coming from this album too.
I think that's where a lot of the power comes from, is that, you know, typically gospel music is very powerful, groove driven, just, you know, stuff that you want to hear over and over again, just very uplifting. Yeah, I don't know if soul was the right word, but maybe more gospel, you know, because my dad actually turned me on to a lot of gospel music as well, because he loves that sort of, you know, yeah, that sort of foundational groove that gospel music always has, you know.
Singing with your diaphragm, you know.
Yeah,
there's no like there's no like kind of nasally kind of voice going on. It's very full sound, very like really strong vocals.
Yeah.
Sweet, great album, Doug. Matt, Mason, anything you guys want to say about it?
I'm basically gonna echo you guys. I mean, I enjoyed listening to it. I thought it was very thoughtful, and you know, I'm not one who's listened to a ton of that kind of old school R&B. It didn't really, it had some soul groove to it, and you know, it was kind of a new listening experience for me. So you know, thanks Doug for sharing that. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, I want to second what everybody said. I really liked what someone said about it being about it was like romantic without being sexy. I really like that. That was a good way to describe a lot of the songs. It's about true love, baby, and it sounds great. The production is great. Yeah, just a all around solid album. All around solid album. I'm gonna be adding it to my rotation of late night sexy songs, baby. So yeah, good number one. Starting the bar high for this second video here.
Should I give this a rating? Are we doing that?
Yeah, do it. You can't go back on it. It's
call it a classic.
Yeah, it's fine. Just call it whatever. We haven't really like thought. We haven't, you know, like beforehand. We haven't really said that we were gonna do this. So
yeah,
it's hard to just choose it on the spot.
I'll just call it. I'll cheat a little and call it a classic here.
Good rating. Classic.
And it's sampled in a lot of other actually R&B and hip hop artists. So yeah, I'd call it
Yeah.
a classic.
4 out of 5 Anitas.
Nice.
All the Nitas. Cool.
All right, cool.
All right.
Can I choose who goes next?
Ooh.
Sure.
Yeah.
Popcorn it.
Cool.
I like that. That's good.
I'm gonna choose James.
Oh, sweet. So we go from R&B to straight into soul. I love it. Sweet. Thanks, Doug. So yeah, my album pick for this little session here was Adventures in Paradise produced by Minnie Riperton in 1975. And I say produced by because she's actually the producer on a lot of these tracks, which I think is pretty cool. Which I don't think you get a whole lot of that in like the sort of soul era. As far as I know anyway. I might be totally wrong. But I love this album. When I first heard it, this was, I think it's Minnie Riperton's maybe second or third album. But when I heard it, it just kind of knocked my socks off. It's got some incredible tracks on there. Starting off strong with like Baby This Love I Have. I think it's one of the stronger like opening tracks that I've ever heard on an album in terms of, really setting the tone in terms of, what the kind of production it's going for, the kind of sound it has. And then what I loved about this album was the vocal talent that Riperton brings to this album. She has a 5-octave vocal range, which is, practically unheard of in terms of singers, which means she can go from, a C on one scale to 5 higher Cs in terms of the notes that she can sing. And she really features that heavily on a couple of songs here. I want to say it's Adventures in Paradise, where she holds that high note for, gosh, I don't know, like 2 or 3 measures.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. So part of what I loved on this album was just that talent, that raw sort of vocal ability. And then there's also just a lot of really cool, really funky bass lines with some great strings, some great horns, really rounding out sort of a full soul kind of funk sound. And then she sort of reins it in on like the middle of the album with like Minnie's Lament and Love and Glory. She really kind of slows it down and really features her voice heavily. So this album kind of blew me away when I first heard it, and it kicked off a whole like soul genre kick for me, where I just was diving deep into different soul albums, trying to listen to different soul artists, all because of this album. So I would love to hear what you guys think, but this album was A+ for me.
I'm glad that we're talking about this one right after Doug's album, because I feel like these were like I listened to these like back to back for whatever reason. I think they were next to each other on the list, and it was just like it was a great like progression to go from Anita Baker into Minnie Riperton. I really loved the groovy bass lines, like you said. It just felt very smooth. It was just very easy to listen to, and the whole album kind of flew by for me. And but in a way where I was still locked in every single song. I think the grooves are able to in each song are different enough that it like keeps a really good listening experience all the way through. So yeah, I really like this album. I'm gonna be honest with you, Anita Baker, I was like kind of ready for that album to be done. It was just like, okay, I feel like I've got this. I'm ready to move on. When I listened to this one right after, I was there for longer. I feel like I was in that groove for a little bit longer. So I'm glad we're talking about the two of them together, because they were like, it's a cool progression to listen to that the contrast between the two albums.
Yeah, the production's very like cleaner on the Anita. I felt like kind of the opposite. I mean, I think the thing is the Anita Baker is just like is more consistent throughout the whole listen of like the vibe. I think there's a lot of things going on in the Minnie Riperton, like I just there's a lot more funk influence. I feel like with like the bass playing and like the drums, which is pretty exciting. But I think there's some songs that on this album that I didn't enjoy. There were a lot of high points and low points, I felt like, on this album for me. Like the first couple tracks, like Baby This Love I Have and Feeling That You're Feeling Good, love those. Love in Its Glory, I was not it's just kind of a weird song for me. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It's just, it was kind of a roller coaster, but like when it hits hard, it hits hard. Like the drums and the bass playing, when they lock in, it's like really unique and interesting. So I'll give it that for sure.
I'm gonna mirror the same thing, which is that, you know, I think the Anita Baker album, since we're talking about these back to back, I'd say that one was more consistent, whereas this one had like really awesome highs, you know, and some of the lows, like I don't even want to call them lows, because the album is good all the way through. I just like certain songs better than others. But what I'm really gonna talk about is, yeah, that vocal range is bonkers. I mean, I've never heard someone hit a high note like that, you know, or have that kind of vocal range. It's truly impressive. Yeah, I mean, just wow.
Yeah, I also I really liked this album, so I don't have too much to add that hasn't already been said, but I do want to call out that I noticed on Baby This Love I Have has a great, well, there's a bit of it that's sampled in KOS by Black Star, which was kind of a fun find for me.
Ooh, I didn't realize that. Good catch, Luke.
Yeah.
That's the best, finding a sample out in the wild. Like, oh.
Yeah, I sent Doug a song the other day of by Sadie, Sade.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this song is sampled on MF Doom. Like, do you have any other songs that would pair well with this? I just stumbled across it. It was a lot of fun. Glad you guys like the album. I mean,
I really like this one. This is one of my favorites out of the bunch.
Yeah, same. I really like this one. I haven't really listened to a lot of Minnie's albums.
I've heard the first one, or the one before this, I think.
One before this, Perfect
That's
Angel.
the one that a lot of people listen to, I feel like.
Yeah. That one has like Loving You on there, which is like her most popular song. But yeah, I just really like it. I think what's cool about like this album and Anita Baker's album is they both have really, really strong voices, and the instrumentation is just like really good in exemplifying that, you know, even if it's not really supposed to be the front and center of the album. Like, it's supposed to be their fucking voices, because they can sing their asses off. So yeah,
and boy do they.
they sure do. But yeah, I love this album. Would love to hear more from her too, and kind of see how her career evolved over the years, because it sounds a little different from other things that I've heard from her. So
yeah,
Doug,
100%.
I'm gonna get at you right after what you just said. So I disagree just a little bit there. You know, I liked this album too. I thought it was some good listens, good true soul music, and I really did kind of appreciate listening to something new, because it's, again, not something that I usually go down on my own listening journeys. The only critique I'm going to have of it is that it's very clear she has a strong voice, and she's able to sing her ass off, like you said, and that vocal range is incredibly impressive. Where I felt like it just came up just a little bit short was, I wanted some more of that diaphragm singing, you know, straighten your back and then just absolutely belt it out and, you know, make me feel, give me some goosebumps. That's where I felt like I didn't get any of that. I mean, it's clear she's got the range and she's got the power, but I felt like everything was just kind of held back just a little bit. And I kind of wanted some of that, you know, goosebump, hair raising, you know, diaphragm singing that could really kind of get me, you know, just whoa, you know, that was the only bit I felt like I was just missing out on. But overall, still great listens, and thanks for sharing that, James.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And I think that's a very fair critique. So if I had to give this album a score, call it out of 10, for me, this is clocking in around 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And what's keeping it from being a 10, I think, is, you know, that very, very similar to what you said, Mason. You know, I wanted more of that kind of like vocal shining. She has a lot of moments on that album where her voice is just front and center, but yeah, straight in your back, kind of singing from the diaphragm for sure. And then yeah, I think another critique would be, there are a couple of moments on the album that I thought could have been a little smoother, a little bit, you know, better produced or something like that. But overall, fantastic album. If you want good like soul, good funk soul with some Philly soul influences in there. Like that's definitely an album to check out. Awesome. Yeah, I would love to talk about Jet, your album. Let's talk about let's do it. Let's get into it.
Oh baby.
Oh, James, thank you for your popcorn. All right. Yeah, kicking us over. Yeah, let's take us back here to 1984. The year is 1984. This album, hot off the presses, shows up in your local record store and you grab it. And you know, you don't think much. It's like Stevie Ray Vaughan. His first album was fucking amazing. Everybody knows that. It's the first album has all the classics on it. So this second album here, Couldn't Stand the Weather. You know, it's a sophomore attempt, and you put it on the turntable, set your needle down, and it eases you in with the first track here, Scuttlebuttling. And it's the way it starts off sets the tone immediately. Like, you know that this album is gonna bring some energy, it's gonna bring some power. It's a classic Texas blues album and made classic mostly because of Stevie Ray. And then you come into this next song here, Couldn't Stand the Weather. And this song is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just so good. It brings just a really like crazy intensity and just the mixture of the funk and the subject matter of Couldn't Stand the Weather and this one hits all the right buttons for me. Anyway, I'm not going to go track by track, but these first two songs really set the tone for this album. There's a couple of covers on here that I think people kind of bring down when talking about Stevie Ray's albums in general. But this is the follow-up here to his first album, I think gets lost a little bit, but I wanted to give it some love. I didn't prepare any of what I was going to say, so I rambled a little bit, but I would love to hear you guys' thoughts, and we'll go from there.
I mean, good God, Stevie Ray Vaughan is just, I'm a massive fan. In my opinion, they don't really get better as far as blues guitars go than Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's able to hit those really soulful, sort of, riffs where he can really draw the notes out and just sort of pull on your heartstrings. And then he's able to just absolutely rip, like with Scuttle, what's it called? Scuttlebuttling?
Scuttlebuttling, yeah, is the first song.
Yeah. I mean, that is just a fire riff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything negative to say about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I just think he's one of the best to have ever touched the instrument. I mean, the other musicians deserve credit too. I mean, it's a solid band. But yeah, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's a classic for me.
I agree. I think it's a classic. I think it's amazing. I mean, you've always played it around the place for me, but like just sitting down and really going through it, I mean, wow, it's amazing. I think it would be really easy to make that sound like kind of get old after a while, but like every single song on the album is unique. And it excites me. I mean, and you say like, what do you have, two? Are there two Jimi Hendrix covers or just one?
There's one,
but he does another one, right?
In the extended version, there's a Little Wing, which the extended version for this album, I would definitely recommend listening to. It's very good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, the covers are great too, and I think like the song "Tin Pan Alley," that's such a slow burner. It's such a bluesy, like you really feel the soul. I love that. And then at the end, you got that that jazzy little outro. I think it's perfect. I don't know, loved it. Can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I echoing everybody else here. It was really great. Stevie Ray Vaughan's still new to me as an artist, and I'm still trying to understand what I should listen to really understand him as an artist. But I really like this one. Made me, get out of my seat and stand in my standing desk. And so, wow. Enjoyed it. It was great. Thanks for sharing this one, Matt. Would love to hear more from him too. I don't know if you if this is a sophomore album that's not as strong, what should I listen to? Because I really like the song Crossfire, but that's all I know.
Oh yeah, that's one of the older or one of the newer ones.
Yeah,
the first album is his like that has most of his hits on it. I think it's called Texas Flood is the name of the album. But that one has like a lot of like the big songs that made him famous and a lot of the classics on it. So yeah, definitely listen to that one, I would say.
I think this album's better. Do you think this album's better?
I think oh man, it's like choosing between my children.
I guess I don't know the first one as much, but I feel like this one just really like hit it for me. I was like, wow, he really killed it.
Shorter. It's definitely more. I think it's more intense. I think you get more of that sense of like strength and like power. I think that's what really resonates with.
Yeah, you could tell he really went for it on this one. With like,
you tried really hard. Yeah,
he pulled out all the stops. Yeah,
there's a really interesting song in the bonus edition. It's just him talking. It's like him talking during an interview called SRV Speaks, and he talks about how like blues music and then just music in general is rooted from like the sounds that people heard around them, and then they were trying to replicate those sounds, and that's what like music is. So when I listened to that, I listened to the album again, and and just tried to compare each song to like something that might appear naturally like in the world, and doing it like that really kind of opened my eyes as to like what they're going for, as to like what they're trying to achieve. A lot of these songs like reminded me of like a train just like and that's kind of how the blues work, because it kind of repeats over and over again. So that imagery and this album in particular like really kind of opened my eyes to looking at music in that way, which is pretty cool.
Or like a horse shuffling down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that was cool. I enjoyed hearing him talk about that.
To connect this back to the last session that we did talking about new albums, this album was what I wanted from the Black Keys album. This album was, varied enough. It was like different enough, and musically, I guess, complex enough to keep me engaged throughout the whole listen. The Black Keys album was very good, very like technically good, but I thought I got a lot more variety and a lot more sort of excitement out of listening to this album. A great choice, Matt. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, James, you just can't stop crapping on my album pick. Man.
I hate it so much.
No,
Yeah.
We're just gonna video after video. We're gonna keep coming back to the Black Keys album.
That'd be so funny.
No, I have to agree with that actually, wholeheartedly, man. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I thought this was a great listen. And I think the thing that the Black Keys album, like, since you brought it up, now I got to talk about it. The thing that they were really missing was just some really great guitar licks and some great guitar solos and things like that. Some of that kind of more, what is it? Not diatonic. Sorry, I'm at a loss for words here. There's that word that incorporates the feeling of the music rather than the actual technical side of it, that I'm blanking on right now. But that's what I felt the Stevie Ray Vaughan album had, man.
You mean like dynamics?
Say again?
Do you mean like dynamics or?
No. There's a word. I don't know. Maybe it's
diabetic.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Diabetics, yeah. If you know in the comments, let us know.
Yes, there you go. Also like and subscribe. But it was a great album. I couldn't help but smile through it, man. And truly, I was the thing that stuck out to me was there was a lot of dissonance in there, and I have a lot of love for albums that are able to make like dissonant chords sound just incredible in the music theory side of things. And it kind of hit on a few of those, and I really enjoyed that a lot. So great pick.
Yeah. I don't have much else to add on top of what everyone else has already said, but I just wanted to jump in and say, Jet, I loved this pick. This was a great album, and I did the same thing as Doug, switched to my standing desk and kind of rocked out while I was working listening to this.
That title track, Couldn't Stand the Weather, is just like I run to that track, work out to it. It's just
gets you active.
I gotta say one thing. I gotta say one thing before we run out of time. If you guys haven't seen the video for Cold Shot, You gotta watch the music video.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it. Oh, sorry.
It is so funny. It is such a funny music video. It's so cheesy, but I think like he meant it to be like he probably had to do it to sell the album, for like MTV. But oh man, it is a funny music video.
And we haven't even talked about Roadhouse. This
Roadhouse,
straight out of Roadhouse. I want to get into like a bar fight to this album.
Oh yeah, just like crack a bottle over somebody's head. Doom, doom, doom. Yeah, totally. All right, that's all.
Found my word too, just so you know. It's Dionysian and Apollonian. If that rings any bells for anybody.
An Apollonian. What the
Like
hell
the
is
Greek
Apollonian?
gods?
Yeah,
You made that up. You made that up.
I did, yeah.
Try to look all smart.
I've never heard those words in my life.
I'm sure you're right though.
I'll send you all the article, the difference between the two. It's more explaining the soul of the music rather than the actual technical side. Doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
That's
We'll
interesting.
move
Yeah,
on, though.
definitely want to read that.
Yeah.
All right, I think we gotta move on.
Popcorn.
Who's next?
Popcorn. Let's go Lucas.
Sounds good.
Lucas.
Let's
Oh,
shift
yeah.
gears a lot.
All right.
All right. So my pick was Sons of Kemet, Your Queen is a Reptile. This was sort of a more left field pick, I thought, compared to some of the other ones in there. A bit more experimental jazz. I've really loved this album for a long time. It's been out for 3 years, I think now. And it just brings together a lot of influences that the artist had from sort of his multicultural background. He brings in like his classical jazz influence from just like the work that he's done as an instrumentalist, as well as like the sounds of like London music and Caribbean drums and South African style. And he just meshes it all together into this kind of very intense, eclectic experience, I guess. That sounds a little pretentious, but I'll go with it. And a few standout songs for me are like the first song. Well, for starters, the whole album is themed around Your Queen is blank, is like every song on it. And then it's some influential Black woman activist, either from the artist's life, like the last song Dorian Lawrence I learned was his like grandmother, or just from like prominent figures like Harriet Tubman's in there. Some of them, I think, like, I don't remember exactly who did what, but there was like a few like prolific nurses and like scientists and stuff in there, and then just activists. As far as the songs themselves, there's Your Queen is Ada Eastman with this like kind of fast up tempo drum work, and just fantastic horns, and the whole album all the way through. I think the horns and the saxophone work really drives some of the excitement for it, and it's just an incredible album, incredible jazz album. Really curious what you guys have to say about it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought I know it's funny that you said it was like a left of field choice, because I feel like this would be an album that I would hear on like Bandcamp radio or something like that, because it's like very worldly, it's kind of out there as well. It's been a while since I've listened to it, to be honest, but I really did enjoy it. I really did like it. I don't really know much about these artists at all, but yeah, thanks for the pick. I really enjoyed it. That's really all I have to say.
Yo, that tuba though. That guy
Tuba's
playing that
incredible.
tuba. I watched the video. The guy's playing like on some like set or something. I think there were like two drummers or something. I forget, but this guy playing the tuba was going hard, and it really you can hear it in the first song too.
Mm-hmm.
And it just adds like, I'm like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever heard. That was just exciting.
This album was a lot for me to like digest. There's a lot going on all of these tracks. There's not, for me, there wasn't any sort of like reprieve from sort of the very full sound. I would have appreciated a couple of songs that were kind of slower, or maybe like a little more reserved to like kind of give me a break listening to the album, because I found that I could only really tackle it in small doses. But But that said, I mean, the sound, like the crafting of the sound and how it all flows together is really outstanding. If I had to give a critique of this album, it'd be that, you know, there weren't, I didn't have like a nice listening break at any point. Maybe also that it sounded like a lot of the songs were constructed around the same kind of form, in the sense of like same general structure. There wasn't for me, there wasn't a lot of, I didn't pick up on a lot of variety in terms of, you know, different time signatures or maybe like different arrangements of instruments. But all around, I really enjoyed the album. I think those are the 2 points that like sort of detracted from it for me, though.
I'm gonna, well, first of all, I don't think your description of the album was pretentious at all, Luke. I do really think that they drew from a bunch of different sounds and just sort of blended them together. But what really stood out to me was this is an album that seemed to have had an idea of what it wanted to sound like and then executed it, you know, to the fullest form. It's just powerful, you know, 0 to 60 as soon as you start. And in a sense, yeah, it does make it a little hard to just sort of sit down and listen to the whole thing in one sitting, but there's a lot to unpack for every single listen. And I can really appreciate that, you know, depending on what mood I'm in, you know, just sit down and just have something I've really got to chew on. So for me, it was a really fun listen and really, really solid playing, really powerful stuff. Yeah.
I'm gonna go right off of what Lauren said. Really enjoyed it. Very interesting listen. I think I'm gonna appreciate it more listening to it a second and third time. You know, we talked a little bit about that the last one. And you know, the first listen through was cool, but you know, it's also a first listen through and, you know, kind of your intro to everything. And then you realize there's a lot more to listen to, you know, upon second and third. So I think that's where I'm going to really start to really enjoy it and, you know, keep it on repeat.
I'm going to say one more thing before I cut out. This is like the high, damn it, I'm my tongue right now. The hiatus coyote.
Hiatus?
Yeah, why am I don't know why I had so much trouble with that. It's the hiatus coyote album of this listen, which is that, you know,
It's dense. It's a dense album.
Dense,
Lot
really
to digest.
Yeah.
It's a great album to turn on while you work, I found. It's like just the energy and the chaos kind of just helps me focus.
Chaos.
Yeah, it's great. I do like it. The songs are all pretty long. So like it is hard to like sit down because there is so much going on and it almost like attacks you with everything, you know? So it can be relentless, which is good at times when you want to be relentless about something. So yeah, I've listened to this in the gym, that's a good place where you want to be relentless too when you're pumping iron. So this is a good one for the gym bros out there. And while I work, it's great. I do really like it a lot. Each listen, you know, uncovers something new, which we talked about. So good pick. It definitely kind of expands my boundaries here. I hear the worldly influence and I enjoy it a lot. So yeah, the Queen is a reptile.
Awesome. Glad everyone liked it. And yeah, I would sort of jumping off what James said, definitely a very dense listen. Well, like everyone said, but incredible. In my notes, I wrote down Your Queen is Anna Julia Cooper and Mammy Phipps Clark. Those 2 songs are like relatively slower songs on the album, but with the caveat that even by that metric, like it's still, there's so much going on. And like Mammy Phipps Clark is very like trippy and ethereal and surreal. And so yeah, I definitely see that critique there. Overall, I would give this album, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I just love this thing. It is that chaotic, upbeat tempo that just gets me through some of those tougher work days that I love. And
I feel you.
I guess I'll pick for our next album now, unless anyone else has any closing thoughts. I'm gonna kick it over to Lauren for the Decemberists.
Okay.
Ooh, I can't wait.
So thank you. I think if I'm correct, this would be, I think their 4th album. And just a tiny bit of history before I get into it. I was recommended this album by someone when I was like 8th grade or something, maybe 2 years after it was released. And at the time, I wasn't really able to appreciate it, but it has since become an album that I've come back to over and over again. And that's because I see a lot of really good, really interesting older influences in this album, you know, such as like, I don't know how many people here are familiar with Jethro Tull, but it's got that folky sound that I think Jethro Tull really had in their music, but also that mixture of prog, you know, in there as well, where you have multi-sectional compositions. I don't remember the song names one by one, but you know, there's certain songs on here where you've got, you know, section, you know, blending into section seamlessly. And I just think it's an album that has a lot of things going on, you know, even though it does sort of have a general sort of folky tone to it. And I just think the execution is fantastic and is really one of my favorite albums, you know, to come back to. My only complaint is that they seem to like to make their albums very, very long. And there's a few pieces in there that I could have done without that would have made it generally stronger, in my opinion. But overall, it's just a really great album, and curious to hear what other people have to say about it.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in and just say that like this might be my favorite Decemberists album. It's got I think the Decemberists' biggest strengths are storytelling and then really interesting arrangements of songs. And this album has that in spades. You know, I've got the track list here. Like The Island, O Valencia, When the War Came, all just incredible songs that tell great stories. When the War Came, by the way, is based off of it's the Russian, like it's a team of Russian scientists who like have possession of this grain vault during I think World War I or World War II, and they have to make this decision to either protect the vault, like it's based off a true story, have to make a decision to either protect the vault and allow like starve themselves and not eat the grain that's in the vault, versus protecting the vault, starving themselves to death and preserving it for like the future of the war when they can regrow the seeds and feed everybody. So this really interesting like historical story that they it's on like a folk album, which just kind of blows my mind. But I thought this album is great. A lot of really interesting instruments are on this album too, like a lot that give it a sound that you don't really hear very often. So I've got nothing but good things to say about this album.
Yeah, I also really liked this album. My introduction to the Decemberists was probably like 4 or 5 years ago when I heard Hazards of Love and sort of like found how good of a storyteller they could be in their albums. And they definitely carry that through here. I guess this probably came out before, so preemptively carried that through, whatever. Standout songs for me, When the War Came is a great call out. I loved that song. I also found Shank Kill Butchers really sticks out to me every time I listen to the album. I don't know that I'd call it like my favorite song on the album, but it is just so kind of different and kind of eerier and really cool. Really cool.
There's something about pretty compositions with brutally, you know,
gruesome. Yeah.
It's really I love that contrast.
It's very much like a nursery rhyme, you know, that like you get in some medieval town in like the 14th century.
This album is epic. It's just epic. I feel like I'm like at sea, like listening to like, you know, an old fisherman tell me a story. I just looked it up on Wikipedia. It's about like it's like a Japanese folk tale that they're telling throughout the whole. And I love the storytelling element. I've listened to this a couple times, but I want to have the lyrics in front of me and like listen to it like while reading the lyrics and like really get like the story experience. Yeah, like Lauren said, the compositions just add kind of to the epicness of the grand like scale of this album. So yeah, wanted to snake that in there. It's epic.
So when I was in high school, I only listened to old music, right? For those who remember in this group. This album was one of the first ones I listened to that I was like, oh, this is really good. And I would listen to it a lot. And then and then Hazards of Love came out. And I don't think I liked Hazards of Love that much. I think this one's better. I don't know why. I think a lot of people like Hazards of Love. So, you know, See, we will. But anyway, I don't know. I haven't listened to this album since high school, and it really brought me back. And I loved it. I think James really nailed it on the head with the description of the whole thing. I really liked the song Yankee Bayonet and When the War Came. It's great stuff. Did a good job. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Lauren, same thing, man. Great album. Kind of reminds me if Green Day had a little bit more of a range in their songs, kind of bent into different genres. I thought, it was a cool listen, and man, I don't know anything about the Decemberists other than I think I've heard a song or two on XRT at a point. So this was kind of a new listening experience for me, and I'm not one who listens to lyrics very well. I don't know if that's my ADD brain or just
Same
kind
here,
of
Rob.
like,
Yeah.
huh?
I said same here. I'm hearing everyone say that the lyrics are real. I want to go back and I'm hearing. I was talking about the instrumentation, which is just absolutely solid.
Yeah.
The lyrics are really interesting too. Go on.
No, it's exactly what you're saying, man. I listen to everything kind of as a collective, as a whole. How do the vocals kind of mesh up with the instrumentation, and how does the general, roller coaster kind of ride? And that's gonna challenge me to kind of go back and listen to some lyrics and really have them in front of me and appreciate what they're trying to say.
I met the Decemberists, one of the violinists at Ravinia once, and I gave her the doctor.
Nice.
Yeah, for those who don't know who are listening, that's just this really big handshake in Chicago right now.
Makes me happy. Makes me happy.
It's where you bump elbows. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Try it out. Yeah.
Shout out Mark Tatelman.
COVID stole the doctor though.
Just wanted to add that I also like this album. Hazards of Love is the only other Decemberist album that I've heard, and to me, they I don't know. I'm not crazy about the Decemberists. I don't know why, but I do like the storytelling. It's very, very cool to follow. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Scathing reviews.
Not that I didn't like it. It's just more like I just don't know if I'm into the band.
Yeah,
but they can play very well, so I do like that.
I feel that. I'm probably not going to go back and listen to it a lot. I feel like one critique for me is like I would hate to say it, but I don't like the singing that much. Maybe that's just the thing. Like some people just aren't into certain voices, I think, and sometimes that kind of thing can just grow on you. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know, but I do like listening to them when I listen to them. So.
I think it's also like Lauren, I know you said this too, like it is really long.
Yeah, it's each album they do is like super long. And I think that is probably if it's time for me to do the rating, I'd say the only thing keeping me from giving this a 9 out of 10 is the fact that some of the weaker compositions that they put into, I don't want to say pad because I don't like the way that sounds, but it is a very long album, and there were certain songs in there that I could have done without. So for me, I'd say it's an 8.5 out of 10 because, I really love this album, but it does sort of go on the longer side for my taste.
Which songs would you cut, Lauren, if you could choose?
God, I mean, it's embarrassing for me to say, but I when I listen to albums as a whole, which I almost do every single time, I have trouble differentiating the song titles from one another, but there's like a song towards the end of the album. I think it's maybe the second to last track where they just sort of go on, and it's not really like, instrumentally complex or varied. And at a certain point, I'm like, okay, next one, yeah. But
Sons
I mean, that's
Daughters, I think.
Yeah, Sons and Daughters. Yeah. I'm kind of like, all right, let's move it on. No, I mean, very small complaint because for the most part, I really like the direction of this album, and instrumentally, I think they do a great job of making varied and accessible compositions. But yeah, 8.5 out of 10.
Oh yeah. Who's next?
Oh, Let's see, who do we got left? Matt, why don't we go with you, man? Because I want to talk about your album.
My album, I chose Electric Warrior by T-Rex. I got the record out. I'm a super fan.
You.
Let me tell you, I am a huge fan of this album. It is widely considered the first real glam rock album. Mark Bolan was the mastermind behind this whole thing. Just some guy from England. He's the kind of guy who he didn't do any drugs. He didn't, drink any alcohol. He was all about being a #1 rock and roll star from when he was a young age. And he didn't let anyone else stop him. Like he was just like constantly was playing guitar and trying to figure out how to do things. This album is his like 6th album, and this is the one that like really blew up. I mean, he was always kind of a T-Rex. It started as Tyrannosaurus Rex for a couple years, and it was much more hippie guy with bongos and an acoustic guitar. If you're interested, it's interesting stuff. It's a lot more folky, but this was when they went electric. So Mark Bolan realized that he needed to do something to make it big. So he fired the other guy in Tyrannosaurus Rex and just shortened the name to T-Rex and started a new band. He's just a ruthless kind of guy, and it worked out for him. And this album is a classic. If you listen to Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie, it's a lot like that. You could probably hear, but this one is a lot more blues guitar influenced, and just the high pitched background vocals, just very glammy stuff. I think what I just love about it, and I love how loose it is. It feels so loose and just kind of like they're in a room jamming, and just kind of like the word play he has like doesn't really make any sense, but it sounds cool, Yeah, and I think at the same time it's so loose, but it's filled like with like these string arrangements that are really cool. Yeah, I just think I think you may not like it because like some people just don't like that glam sound, but I think it's more important because it's like the first glam album. And I think when it comes to glam albums, like the earlier glam albums are better than later in the 70s. I think it gets a little much. But I think this one is very roots to like blues, and it's just a fun listen for me. I think, and a great rock album. So love to hear what you guys think.
This album was a trip for me because I'm probably, I mean, David Bowie's probably one of my favorite artists that on my list of favorite artists. And it was a real trip to hear an album that wasn't, there's definitely differences between these guys and David Bowie, but you're really right in that this was Ziggy Stardust before Ziggy Stardust, in that, I was hearing elements of glam rock before glam rock was really a thing. And that was just really trippy to me. And even down to like they're British as well, right, Matt?
Yes.
Right. So you have, I don't know. It just was a really fun listen, and I don't really have a whole lot to say that you haven't said already, except for the fact that it was cool. It was like finding another David Bowie album, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and it's not an intense listen or anything. It's just kind of I don't know. It's loose. It's
out of all the albums that we had like today, I think the opening track on this album, what's it called? Mambo Sun.
Mambo Sun, yeah.
I think that's one of the more interesting opening tracks that really drew me into the album that I heard. I totally different sounds, totally like not what I was expecting. And I forget the specific hook, but he did something with his vocals in that song that's just really kind of funky and weird.
Yeah, his vocals are weird.
Yeah, and I really liked it. So like as a huge fan of like psych rock, glam rock, I really enjoyed this album for being one of those. I didn't know this before, Matt, that it was one of the first glam rock albums, but like I really respect it for taking that risk because it sounds great.
Yeah, I also really like this one too. Bang a Gong is just a fucking amazing song.
It's a banger.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared this with Matt, because I remember when in college, this was one that you listened to a lot, and I knew jack shit about T-Rex. So thanks for introducing it then and reintroducing it now. And yeah, it's really great. I found myself lately listening to a lot of Lou Reed. So I feel like this is kind of down that
It's
same
down that path for sure.
So I'm kind of looking forward to listening to more T-Rex too, because
Yeah, I would, if you're gonna listen to T-Rex, I don't know. I don't really know their older stuff as much. But this is like their 6th album, technically. But people say their later stuff is kind of goes along with this vibe. The earlier stuff's very folky and hippie. So
kind of like Fleetwood Mac in that way, in the sense of like they went from hardcore blues rock to kind of more folk rock.
Yeah, except the opposite.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like it, except not at all.
Well, you got the right track.
I was a little nervous going into this album, just because I don't like Bang a Gong as much as you guys do. I think that song's a little mid in terms of a rock song, but I knew it from like the radio and stuff, and it just never really hit with me super well. So I was a little nervous going into this album. I was like, oh no, like what's it gonna be? But I was really surprised by how like varied it was, and how not every song is like Bang a Gong, which is nice. And I really like this album. It was a great listen straight through. Like you were saying, Matt, it's like really easy. It's got good feelings to it. Adding this to the classic rock rotation, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I also really liked this album. Definitely a little bit of a newer experience for me. I haven't listened to like a ton of glam rock, so I didn't even really catch that it was glam rock, to be honest. But to sort of jump off what like Doug and James have already said, Mambo Sun and Bang a Gong really stood out to me. I loved those songs a lot.
Yeah, Mambo Sun.
I always considered T-Rex the one-hit wonders with Bang a Gong, because and frankly, that's just me because I didn't know much about them. I learned that song from, listening to The Drive, also one of my history of rock and roll classes, and we didn't really touch on T-Rex much. And I really quite enjoyed listening to this album.
The thing is, they were much bigger in the UK. Like they were one of those bands that they were like as big as the Beatles in the UK. They were like huge in the UK, but like not big here at all. So it's like one of those things.
Right. And Bang a Gong obviously made it over here. I still hear that on the radio to this day. And it's a great song, but I liked hearing that there was a lot more range, and exactly what Luke said. I wasn't a huge glam rock guy, so I didn't really pick up on that either, but the range of having some moody tracks into some, like I like to put it in the last one, the knee slappers, right? The ones that kind of get you going. And it kept things interesting and just overall really tight, really solid.
Hell yeah. All right. We good? Let's move on.
What's your rating?
I think if you take into consideration that like where it stands on the history of music, I think that probably give it an extra leg. But I think if you're just looking for it for what it is, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. And I'm not gonna say it's one of my favorite albums ever, but it's just a good listen all the way through. I think it's a classic. But I don't think it's as good as like unbelievable as Ziggy Stardust. If you ask me, I think it's a good stepping stone. And I don't know why I chose this album, but I think I was just like listening to it when we were thinking of albums or something. Thought it'd be fun to talk about. Who hasn't gone yet? Mason. I choose Mason because I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm sure. You guys are ready to poop all over it, aren't you?
No, I love this album.
No, I do too, Ben. And I think last time I went on the first one we had, it was the most divisive album, and I would not be surprised if this were going to be the same. There's a lot that I like about this album, and actually a lot that I dislike about it. But I think as a whole, it's a really important album. And that's because it kind of, sampling had been around for years before that, but not to this extent, right? So this album is a collection of samples from, I mean, searching the internet for the most part. I mean, it came out in the 2000s, so this was kind of before you really had to actually sample with either a field recorder or a vinyl rip or tape rip or something like that. So the new style and the new technology that was kind of introduced to everybody via this album, I think just made it really important. There were over 900 individual samples in it. It's Since I Left You by the Avalanches. Just realized I hadn't even said the name yet, but we could have a like year-long debate about the efficacy of sampling, and it's how much of a gray area is it? Are you taking something somebody else made and just kind of stealing it for yourself, or what the deal is with that? And I think it's unique in that you have people like DJ Earworm, if anybody's familiar with them, who is just going to mash up 20 different songs together and put that out as his own song. But this had a unique artistry to it where they were legitimately using samples as instrumentation, and the layering and the way that they can put a golf instructional video with some Madonna sample with a very old R&B record that nobody would really recognize or catch, and turn it into its own unique thing and own unique piece of art. I think is just fantastic. And another thing I really liked about this is something you kind of catch with the Beatles back in the day, or Pink Floyd. The album, the songs flowed into each other very nicely. And that's something I really like about an album, when they really have kind of the forethought to actually make it one long continuous track, rather than it starts here, ends here, starts here, ends here, right? And that's something I like. I would say my only critique about this album is that when you're just over halfway or towards the end of the album, you start to kind of tune it out a little bit. There's so much going on with it. And kind of that breakbeat style, it almost sounds like it's just kind of continuing on in the background, and it's hard to kind of pick out the intricacies after you've been listening to it for so long. So it definitely, you need to chop it up a little bit. But I mean, overall, I really dig this, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, this album was really reminiscent to me of Yeti Season by the Michaels Affair, in the sense of like very, very little vocals, and the vocals that were there were sampled, but really interesting, complex instrumentation arranged in such a way that like it was always different, always new. There were a couple of standout tracks for me on this album, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun listen, not something that I would have encountered like by myself. And there was a lot of almost kind of like early, or sort of reminiscent of kind of house music in a way, of the way that a lot of the things were chopped up and sort of split together. And I think when coming down on that discussion of what is sampling and is it ethical, et cetera, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, Mason, of the ability to take totally different things, very specific points of different works of art, and combining them in an intricate, new and interesting way, I think is a really important aspect of like what separates your nightclub DJ from your really famous producer, right? And I thought this album did that really well, taking a lot of fascinating, like drawing from a lot of different areas and putting it together in such a way that it was new and interesting. So I really enjoyed this album.
So I'm going to start mine with a question, which is Mason, how much of the album was sampling and how much was like individual instrumentation? Like, do they actually play instruments, or and like, this isn't like a critique. I didn't have any background going into this album, so I wasn't really sure what was going on.
I don't have an exact answer for you. I know that they are musicians, right? And it's a small group. I think it's just a couple of them. And I know they are musicians. They're very they do play their instruments. On some of their later albums, you'll actually hear a lot of their production. This was their debut album, and kind of I won't say a one-off because they still do use a lot of sampling, but no, there is instrumentation, but it's kind of, it's hard to pick out because it's all kind of layered on top of each other.
I think this album was really well done. I really enjoyed listening to it. The thing, because like, I think the efficacy of using samples directly depends on the transformative nature, meaning like how much was reworked and how much was used as sort of its own instrument in itself. Which means I'm going to want to give this another listen and get more of the background. But as far as I know, I really enjoyed listening to this. I thought it was really well mixed and that everything flowed smoothly into each other, kind of like you were saying, like, you know, very Pink Floydian in that, you know, everything sort of flowed from one idea to another. So, I mean, even if they are, you know, mostly sampled, their ability to mix and, you know, and make everything flow together is really something. I've never heard anything like it. It was really cool. Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of this album. I've listened to the Avalanches for a while and listened to a couple of their records. I think this one's always kind of held a special place in my heart because the first Avalanches song that I heard was Frontier Psychiatrists off this album, which is just an insane mix of different samples and noises, and it's absolutely wild. Highly recommend the music video for that if you haven't seen it. It's equally jarring and surreal. But yeah, I love this record.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love this album. I got into the Avalanches in college with their second album that came out which is like, they took a long break, didn't they? Like 20 years or something, like something like that. But anyway, I forget what the second album's called, but I really liked the second album. And I always knew the title track from this one, but I never really took a deep dive until we did this. And I just love it. I think it's, yeah, like, I think there's a lot of songs that use sampling and it's just kind of like, it's like they use that as a skeleton, like the sample, and then they just go over it. But this one, they're really like doing little pieces and really piecing things together. And it's just like, wow, this must have taken a long time to make, you know, when you're listening to it.
It was probably on like tape machines and, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
CDs. Yeah, I mean, back in the 2000s, I don't know what kind of DAWs they had, the digital audio workspace, right, to like Logic or Ableton or anything. So.
Yeah, they weren't like a known group too, so I'm sure it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just the talent that went into this and just like the time, I just respect so much. Best song in the album, Pablo's Cruise, for sure. If you know, you know, where it just like goes, you know, it's like the beach like kind of vibe, and then it goes like just like the cruise horn goes, and then that's the whole song, and then it's like the next song. I just thought that was like funny as hell. Just like little things like that just like put a smile on my face. I do agree with Mason's like one gripe with it. The album feels a little long sometimes, but like it is hard to sit through something like so complex like that. But that again, the whole thing's still great. I don't know, so I loved it.
Yeah, I also really love the Avalanches and really love this album as well. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
I loved it as well. It was a long listen, but it was very good. The songs are like different enough that it felt good. I worked to this one and it was perfect for that. Just kind of turning it on and having some great in the background while you're focusing. Yeah, I haven't listened to the Avalanche as much, but we'll be listening to them more because I really like this album. Don't have too much more to add other than that.
Sweet. Well, I was wrong then. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. My overall rating, probably going to be 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Yep.
Nice. I guess that's it. Well, now it's the end of, we picked all our albums. Now we all got to vote.
Kick us off,
who
Matt.
wants to go first?
Now, why don't you kick us off, Matt?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is my favorite? Oh, I remember what my favorite is. My favorite is the Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love the Stevie Ray Vaughan. I gotta say, guys, I loved every single one of these albums, so it was really hard. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, it just seemed like I don't know, just that he just kills it on that album. I don't know what it is. He just I always kind of knew the album, but then like listening to it, I was like, oh yeah, this is just a classic. He's just doing it. So not too much to say, but
nice. So one vote for Stevie Ray Vaughan. If I had to choose my favorite album, I'd actually go with the T-Rex album. It was not an album that I'd heard before, but I totally, for me, it was the very obvious music lineage that was present in the album. It was it kind of had a lot of the elements of rock that I really enjoy, with enough, differentiation in the vocals and enough differentiation in the sound to keep me interested all the way through. So that's my pick for albums. That wasn't mine, obviously. So who else?
I'll go next. I loved every single one of these albums. They were all awesome. Very different, just listening experiences for all of them. I think my favorite and the one I see myself listening to the most is the Adventures in Paradise, the Minnie Riperton. That one just really just spoke to me on the first listen, and I'm gonna be listening to it a lot moving forward. So yeah, one vote for Minnie.
I think I'm probably.
Sorry,
Mason.
No, you're fine, man. Go ahead.
I think I'm probably going to cast my vote for the Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. I just loved the blues influences. Great album, great rockin' album. Really going to have to check out that first record that Jet was saying is also a classic.
Exactly what I was going to say, Luke. Put me down for Stevie, man. I listen to those guitar licks. I swear to God, I start like tearing up, man. It's beautiful. The tone of the guitar, I just can't get enough of it. So that's me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put another vote for Stevie because man, do I love that album. And like, it definitely wasn't my first time listening to it. It's just, God, it's good. It's just, yeah, Stevie. I loved all the listens, but that one just has a place for me.
Guess I'm last here. My vote is going to the Minnie Riperton album. It's a very great album. So.
Yeah, I think in summary, lots of great music this time around. All of these albums are fantastic. All these albums have something unique to bring. And if you're watching this right now and you haven't listened to these albums, go do it. Go listen. What are you doing?
Yes, they were all good picks, but there was only one winner. One vote for T-Rex, 2 for Minnie Riperton, and 4 for Stevie Ray Vaughan. Congratulations, Jet. You have the best music taste this month. Nice job.
I love how all of our definitions for like old album were so different. It's gonna be a good listening experience if you haven't listened to these yet, just back to back.
Yeah, they were all over the place.
Yeah.
I love this.
Well, there's a lot of room for old albums because our definition of new is the last 6 months, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we got a lot of room to work with.
We got a lot of room. I liked it. Yep. So you guys, don't forget, you can also vote on what you thought was your favorite album out of this group of records. Just go on our description under our YouTube video. There should be a link and it'll take you to our website where you can vote. We'd love to hear what you guys think. Sound off in the comments, subscribe, tell your friends, and that's it.
Tell your dads.
Tell your dads, especially, and have their dads know too. Dads of dads. Yeah, that's it, guys. We'll see you guys next time for another new album one. We'll see ya.